Let's start with you, James, with Lewis Smith. Now, another excellent young player. He's had a decent season. Your thoughts on him? I think this is more of your choice, James. We obviously all kind of agreed, but what's kind of stood out with Lewis Smith and how he's played this season?
Well, I mean, he got a handful of games at the tail end of last season, and that was sort of his first steps at Hamilton. But then this year, he's really kicked on. I mean, he started just about every game for them. I mean, he's been on the bench once or twice, but for the most part, he's playing week in, week out. He's also playing in a variety of positions. He's been playing on, like, I first saw him, he was a right winger, but he's been playing on the left. He's even been playing like sort of centre mid or attacking mid at times as well. But the thing that I think is really exciting about him is the way he drives forward with the ball and when he his sort of dribbling ability. I think that, I mean, the first time I really sort of set up and took notice of him was when Celtic went to Hamilton early on in the season. They won 1-0, and I remember this, particularly in the second half, Smith looked brilliant. Like, he was terrorising the Celtic defence. He was constantly driving forward and causing all sorts of problems. And okay, Hamilton went on to lose that game 1-0, but he really stood out. And that's something that's actually continued whenever he's played against Celtic or Rangers. Generally speaking, he's shone. Now, part of that is obviously down to tactics, and that when you're playing against Celtic and Rangers who are a bit more open because of, you know, they're pressing forward on you quite a lot, that allows you, that creates space for someone like Smith to exploit. But I mean, almost every game he's played against Celtic or Rangers, he's really gave a good account of himself. And you think that this is a guy who is, you know, this is his first full season in professional football, and his best performances generally came against the best teams in the league. And I think that's really exciting. I mean, obviously Hamilton have got a long history of producing, exciting young players. And I just think Lewis Smith is going to be the next one who Hamilton will be doing. They'll probably have to fight tooth and nail to keep a hold of him this summer, I believe. And if they do, that'll be huge for them because he is really exciting. I mean, in terms of his dribbles per 90, he averages 7.3, which is, for players aged 25 or under, the only non-Old Firm player to eclipse that is Sherwin Seedorf at Motherwell. Now, obviously, that doesn't translate directly to being good at dribbling. It just says you attempt lots of them. But I think that's an encouraging sign in that it shows you he's got that willingness and determination to take opposition players on. And I think he's a really, really exciting young prospect. I mean, you look at he's got a few goals, a couple of assists this season, but he's got expected assists of 2.2, which is, you know, fine. It's not anything amazing at all, to be honest, but it is 10th in the league for players aged under 25. When you consider that's playing for Hamilton, who, you know, they're always going to finish 10th. That's what Hamilton do, and you know they're not the most free flowing and attacking team at the best of times. But I think with Smith, they've got a player there who looks to be a really exciting prospect, and I'm definitely going to be watching him closely because I think that, you know, come the summer, I think there will be other teams interested in him, and I think Hamilton will have to really fight, you know, tooth and nail just to keep a hold of him.
Yeah, James kind of took away my next question to you, Stefan, which was, is this the next in the kind of production line of great midfielders? Obviously, Lewis Ferguson was maybe the last one that went to Aberdeen, and obviously Greg Docherty as well. Is Lewis Smith just looking like he's going to carry on that tradition? Is he that good? Is he the same level?
I think he looks like a great young prospect. I'm not entirely sure if we can say that just yet. I mean, he has kind of broke into the team this year, and he has picked up, I think he's got 5 goals and 3 assists according to what I've got in front of me. But he's one of a number of young players who are coming through this team. You know, you've got Hamilton himself, obviously centre back, Cunningham as well as another forward, and a few other ones like McCann, left back, for example. And he certainly seems to be in that same mould of, you know, attacking, almost cocky attacking players that Hamilton seem to just kind of do so well at creating, you know, and obviously Hamilton seems to be synonymous with offering these young players this kind of stage to go forward. I think it's really interesting how much time and patience he's been given this season, and Brian Rice seems to be a really good coach for that. Despite maybe where Hamilton are in the season, I don't think you can fault how much patience and just belief Rice has put in these young players. I think he said at the end of last season, after he managed to keep them up, that going forward, even though he currently had a squad that had managed to fight off relegation, he said himself, look, going forward, we're going to be basically just bringing in the youth players. It's not about signing 27-year-old or 34-year-old journeyman. It's about doing what Hamilton know best, and that's obviously bringing in young players who are good enough to play at Premiership level, and that's obviously something that Smith has already proved this season. I also think it's really interesting that he obviously has a kind of cautionary tale in David Templeton in the squad. If I'm not mistaken, I think he's still at Hamilton, isn't he, James? Like, hasn't left or anything like that in a Bosman.
I think he went away and then came back. I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, because obviously just to go back, but he's obviously a player who had basically a kind of similar rise at Hearts. He went on to Rangers where didn't really achieve much, but then he's kind of gone back and forth, and even went down to Burton Albion for a while. And it'd be interesting if someone like him or someone like that can offer a kind of like role or a kind of mentoring role for Smith to say, look, you know, you're going to have a lot of people interested in you, not just from one of the big clubs in Glasgow, but also from down south. You know, try and keep your feet in the ground, try and make sure you get as much practice and game time under your belt before you do make that move. And at Hamilton, he's got that opportunity, and unlike maybe other clubs where, you know, maybe in the last episode we're talking about McLennan, for example, we're not entirely sure if he will be given the game time to continue progressing. There's no doubt that someone like Smith will have enough game time to show what he's worth at Hamilton, and he'll either do that and become this outstanding player and move on to bigger things, or he won't. And that's the kind of great thing about Hamilton. They do allow these guys the time to develop.
Well, I think, just to jump in on the Templeton point, I think it's important to point out that when he signed for Rangers, that was just after we're in the third division, so it's maybe not the exact same as, when someone like Greg Docherty goes to Rangers, because obviously Templeton came through it. I think it was Stenhouse-Muir came through it, and then he went to Hearts. But then obviously I think I agree with you in that, he had a great season at Hamilton a couple of years ago, and then he went down to Burton, did fine, and as I say, I think he's back at Hamilton. I think he came back in January, but I agree there's definitely maybe a cautionary tale in there somewhere, but it's maybe not the sort of classic young guy signs for Celtic or Rangers and then doesn't get a game, because I think at Rangers he did play a lot, and it was a different Rangers that he signed for.
Fair enough. I mean, I think we'll probably move on, because I don't know if you get anything else to add to that in terms of Lewis Smith. Like, it's exciting, and it's honestly quite remarkable how Hamilton do it on it seems like a season by season basis. And I think we won't mention too much about the SPFL debacle on this podcast at all, but depending on what happens, if they do remain in the Premiership, I think it'd be really wise for him to stay for another season and have that year of just developing and kind of establishing himself as their main guy in the midfield, if he's not already. So I don't know, it'll be interesting to see how he develops, and obviously what happens in the next couple of weeks, whether people will come in for him or not.